Good afternoon to everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Lots of people joining us.
Yeah, this is Holly. I'm on by phone right now.
Okay.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out who that was.
Are you, Madam Secretary?
I'm well. I have to tap every time I want to speak because it's on my phone. So that's why you get a delay from me. I'm well. I should get set up and be on video in probably about 15 minutes, but I didn't want y'all to get started without me.
Thank you.
Holly, how's Jerry doing? Pretty good?
He's hanging in there. He's been on a diet. He's lost almost 20 pounds. So
You're kidding.
he's been grumpy a little bit, but not too bad.
Join my ask him, will you?
I will. He's done very well. So.
I'm on a diet too. That anything, the way they tell me is anything tastes good, don't eat it. So. So Jeremy, whenever you're ready, you and Winston, give me the word.
Yeah, Jeremy, how do we look at on a quorum?
We have 10 members, so we do have a quorum. The people I don't see are PG, Mayor Burton, Ms. Hinko.
We'll give him a couple minutes.
Who else? We might give them a couple more minutes.
If the numbers keep going down, we might be able to come in one of these days.
We may be getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping my fingers crossed, maybe April, not April, May.
We don't have a meeting in March, do we?
We do not have a scheduled meeting in March.
Well, if we're not all in war by that time, we might be able to come in. Either
It's
pandemic or a war or something going on,
it's scary. It really is scary.
It is.
It's halfway around the world from us, but it feels like it's a lot closer.
I've got a customer who has family in Ukraine, and they're really upset this morning. It's just really is scary for them.
I bet.
What do you say, Jeremy?
We just got an email from Kathy Hinko, but it popped up on my screen and then went away, so I'm not sure what it said. Jeremy, did you see it?
Bear with me. I have an email from her.
Let's see.
She's trying to get in now. I just didn't.
Okay. Yeah, somebody has resent her the invitation. So where do you think we are, Jeremy?
So we're at 11.
Yeah, I joined.
We're at Mr. Peoples, Mayor Burton, Ms. Reber, and Dr. Myers are the 4 who are not present.
But we have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. We can proceed if you would like.
It's 5 after, and we don't know the circumstances of the others. So if the chairman's agreeable to that, I think we probably ought to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's move on. They can join us. So, Jeremy, would you officially give us a confirmation of the quorum, please?
Yes, sir.
The confirmation of the press notice.
Yes, sir. We do have a quorum, and the press has been notified.
And Mr. Chairman, before we proceed further with the agenda, I'd like to take this opportunity, if I could, to introduce a new board member to the rest of the board members, Marilyn Mason. And I saw Marilyn's camera on screen a little while longer. I don't know whether it's as it's currently displayed, anyone else could see her or not. But Marilyn, if you'll give us a wave to those that might be able to see you.
There.
And there you are. We've got you right there. And welcome to the board.
Thank you very much.
Marilyn was appointed on January the 25th of 2022 for a term expiring October the 31st of 2025. And Marilyn is the owner and principal broker in a real estate firm of Executive Properties located in Ashland, Kentucky. She's a graduate of Morehead State University. And we are going to forego introductions of everybody else on the board this morning or this afternoon, Marilyn, because we got a really long agenda, and hopefully we can introduce everybody to you at the next meeting, whether it be in person or being virtually, but we won't go through introducing everybody one by one. But welcome to the board.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And before you're sworn in, and while I have the floor, I will just simply mention that we do have a couple of informational items that we'll get to at the very end. One will be an update on what we are involved in or what we're aware of with reference to the Western Kentucky tornado recovery. And then we'll talk a little bit about the 50th anniversary kickoff that you all have received information about it that occurred back in earlier in the month, but may not have attended unless you attended on YouTube because there weren't open invitations. But we'll cover those items then, and I'll turn the matter back to Chairman Denham and Jeremy.
Thank you, Winston, and Ms. Mason. Welcome to the board. We're very glad to have you here. You'll find that this is a wonderful board, and they're a crackerjack staff. So anytime we can help you with anything, please don't hesitate to ask. So, Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you to swear Ms. Mason in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Gibson to administer the oath. It does have to be administered by a notary public, and I stopped doing that a few years ago. But Sarah is a notary, so she's going to administer your oath. And the way we'll do it, since it's virtually, it's a little difficult to do. She's just going to read the entirety of the oath, and then we'll just ask you to state that you affirm that all of it is true. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Okay. Ms. Mason, as Jeremy said, if you will just affirm that the following is true. I, Marilyn Mills, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as I continue a citizen thereof, and that I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability the office of board member of Kentucky Housing Corporation according to law. And I do further solemnly swear or affirm that since the adoption of the present Constitution, I, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state, nor out of it, nor have I sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have I acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help me God.
Sarah, just in case your records reflect that, you did refer to me as Marilyn Mills. I do affirm all of those, all of those except the last name does need to be Mason.
My apologies.
Understandable. Thank you.
Okay, welcome as a new board member, and proceed.
Marilyn, we're glad to have you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, so we'll move on to consideration and approval of the minutes. I think all the board members have had an opportunity to look over the minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
This
we have
is
a motion
George.
to
I'll
approve.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion carries. Okay, all right, so the next consideration is agenda item 4, which is an authorization to renew a personal service contract to McBrayer. And Lauren Van Sickle, I think you're going to discuss this with us. So if you would proceed, please.
Mr. Chairman, bear with
Yes,
me.
sir.
I think we've gotten out of order a little bit. It's item number 3, and it's me. This is to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeremy. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
Ballast Incorporated.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So this is to approve the renewal of a personal service contract with Ballast Inc. As most of you are aware, last year this body voted to approve KHC exiting the Kentucky Employee Retirement System. And as part of that, we had to establish a replacement pension plan that was a defined contribution plan rather than a defined benefit plan. We did that. We established a 401A plan that is administered over through deferred comp. But as part of that, KHC is the sponsor of a new plan. And as such, we have to have trustees, which are currently the executive team of Kentucky Housing Corporation serves as the trustee. We all require consultation and expertise from financial advisors in fulfilling our duties as trustees of that plan. And so we last year contracted with Ballast Inc. to provide those services. They review the investments that are available in the plan and the performance of the plan, and they provide us with information about such as the percentage of our employees who are participating and all that information. They consult with us on a quarterly basis and go over everything with us. They've been really good thus far, and so we seek to renew that contract for another fiscal year. And so staff recommends approval by the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation of a resolution authorizing Kentucky Housing Corporation to renew the personal service contract with Ballast Inc. for fiscal year in 2023 for an amount not to exceed $16,000.
And I might add that Jeremy tells me that they do a wonderful job and for working with him. So, and other members of the staff. Do any board members have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we renew this personal service contract.
I move.
Well, okay, we have a motion and have a second.
I'll
Need a
second that. This is Chad.
Okay, thank you, Chad. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, now, Lauren, you're up to talk about McBrayer.
Thank you. I'm here to talk to you all today about renewing our McBrayer contract. Legal Services uses them with our outside counsel for services in the amount of $100,000.
Okay, so I might add that this is a renewal. We had approved McBrayer last year, and there are, as I understand it, Jeremy, there are 2 renewals allowable under that deal, and we have to renew this. So do any members have any questions of Lauren? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this personal service contract. Need a motion.
I'll make that motion. This is Chad.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Need a second? Please.
I'll second that, this Barry.
Okay, thanks, Barry. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Lauren, you want to talk about the personal service contract with Walter, Gay, and Mac, please?
Yes, thank you. This is similar to our other contracts, Walther, Gay, and Mac. We use them as well for outside counsel for our legal department in the amount of $20,000. This was procured at the same time as the McBrayer contract and is on the same renewal. This will be the second renewal for this contract as well.
Okay. Any members have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We renew this personal service contract.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Lauren, you have one more personal service contract.
So these are actually, this is two personal service contracts with two different vendors for the same services. For our foreclosure and bankruptcy proceedings for any of the properties that we may need to dispose of. There's Septimus Taylor for an amount not to exceed $750,000. And then there's also Sterling and Rettig for the amount of $1.2 million. Those amounts are a little bit larger, I think, than previous years, just with some of the anticipated extra foreclosures and bankruptcies we will likely be seeing in the next fiscal year. These are on a renewal. We have worked with them previously as well.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Any members have any questions of Lauren? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt these personal service contracts.
This is Holly. I'll move.
All right, thank you, Madam Secretary. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate your hard work. All right, Stephen Brunson, you're up with a report of the Finance Committee held February 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just bring my volume up a bit. Okay, can everyone hear me?
And
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. The Finance Committee, the Board of Directors of the Kentucky Housing Corporation met virtually on February 17th, 2022 at 2 o'clock. The committee first heard from Kevin Field, who presented changes to the KHC internal audit charter and agreed with we agreed with the recommended changes. I'd like to ask Kevin now if he could present the revisions to the full board.
Thank you, Mr. Brunson. Yes, I'm here today to present one revision to the current internal audit charter in accordance with IIA Auditing Standard 1000. The only recommended change to the charter at this time is in Section 2 under the heading Purpose.
Recording in progress.
And the change basically is for a recommendation to add or include the IIA's Professional Code of Ethics as required under Standard 1010. So the Code of Ethics is one of three mandatory elements of the IIA's International Professional Practices Framework. The other two mandatory elements are the standards and the definition of internal auditing, both of which are already recognized within Section 2 of the charter. And that is the only revision. And I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time.
Any member of the board have any questions? Okay, hearing
So-
none. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, the committee then heard several presentations from Jim Statler, starting with a review of the corporation's financial performance for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. A summary of this.
Mr. Bronson, I'm sorry, we need to conduct a vote on the resolution to approve the revisions to the internal audit charter, please.
Very good. I'll ask members of the board if they would make a motion to recommend the acceptance of the change.
I'll make that motion. This is Chad.
I'll
Thank
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Going back to where I was, committee heard a presentation from Jim Statler, starting with a review of the corporation's financial performance for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, a summary version of which he will present in a few minutes. He also reported on the results of the secondary market mortgage purchase program through December, stating actual gains were just short of 12 million compared to planned gains of 5.9 million, a variance of just over 6 million. He expressed disappointment that the lofty gains of last year have reverted back to the more normal levels of today. With present volatility in the interest rates, management is monitoring our trading position very closely. Jim went on to discuss the single-family servicing portfolio. The portfolio has shrunk slightly since June 30th of last year, the result of significant loan payoffs during the recent very low rate environment. New loan production has not kept pace with runoff, with both being higher than planned through December. The weighted average servicing fee rate decreased slightly from the rate at June 30th. Mr. Statler also presented a schedule of loan delinquencies highlighting the impact of loan forbearance due to the COVID pandemic. The majority of borrowers impacted by COVID layoffs occurred in early spring. If you're not muted, could you please mute? We're getting some feedback. Thank you. The majority of the borrowers impacted by the COVID layoffs occurred in early spring of 2020, resulting as expected in a significant accumulation of delinquent loans at 90 plus days. With forbearance ending for most of those loans, the delinquencies will begin to be resolved through either agency end of forbearance provisions, primarily done as loan modifications, or possibly use of the homeowners assisted fund monies that have just been made available. Though there is a liquidity cost to the overall forbearance program, the corporation has been able to meet those costs with internal resources. Mr. Statler also advised the committee that based on his evaluations, the secondary market mortgage purchase program remains the preferred method of funding our single-family loan production, preserving available bond cap for multifamily production and mortgage credit certificate program use. He indicated that there are no bond issues available for refunding this year. Jim, if you would now review the financial statements for the entire board.
There, now I'm unmuted. Thank you, Mr. Brunson. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm going to give a brief summary of what I shared with the Finance Committee. On the chart in front of you now, I'm going to look at line D, which shows an 11% decrease in total assets, and line J, which shows a 27.5% decrease in total liabilities. Anytime liabilities decrease by more than assets, then the result is an increase in fund balance. And you'll see that at line K. And so our bonds are paying off faster than our loans. We're using as much available cash as possible to pay the bonds off and stop the interest clock on them and get revenues down to the bottom line. The other items of note on this schedule is line H, where the pension liability has dropped from $90 million to $30 million since June. We did make a $60 million down payment on that in August. That liability carries an interest rate of about 5.75% to 6%. And we knew that 60 would be a good, safe deposit, if you will, that the total liability will be surely greater than 60 million. So we did make that $60 million deposit. I expect, or I've been promised, the final bill by the end of February, which is Monday, and very optimistic that it'll come in a little under $90 million. We do have the resources getting marshaled to be able to make that payment as soon as possible, so that we can stop that 5.75% or 6% interest clock between now and June 30th, which is when we do have to finally pay it. So that's on schedule. We were able to save a couple $100,000 a month by paying $60 million early. Going down to the bottom of the page, lines N and O, and Mr. Brunson mentioned in his synopsis, we did experience a very, very small decrease in the overall size of the portfolio serviced for others from it was just down a couple $100,000, a couple $1,000 actually. It's a couple $1 million since these are in thousands, excuse me. And then it may be a little bit more significantly a drop in the weighted average net servicing fee. That is the rate of, it's an interest or an earnings rate that we earn on our portfolio, and it dropped from 33.1 basis points to 31.6. That's a function of old product going off at a higher servicing fee than the new product going back on it. So we do watch that. That's an indication of future revenues coming off the servicing portfolio, so that we can be sure that we're building an adequate annuity stream by selling the loans into the secondary market and servicing them for Fannie and Ginnie. If there's no questions on that, I'd like to go to the chart. This is a chart that the veteran members are familiar with, and as was predicted several years ago, it did cap off or top out back in 2019 or 20, sorry, and then as any servicing portfolio continues to get larger, you have to pedal really, really hard to keep the production coming in to offset the payoffs going out. And so what we see is that we did plateau a couple of years ago, and we're starting to decrease a little bit. Not too concerned with it, but something that we watch. The black line is the outstanding bonds, and that's very revealing in that almost all of the servicing now we have is sold servicing retained, and the lion's share of that is sold through Ginnie Mae mortgage-backed securities. And it's just it's better cash execution. And as Mr. Brunson said in my comments to the Finance Committee, I still recommend that we continue to do the fund mortgage production with the secondary mortgage market purchase program instead of using revenue bonds. And we'll talk a little bit about revenue bonds in a minute. We have a very good use for the revenue bonds, so it's not like we're leaving anything on the table, but not using them for single-family loan production. Going to the income statement, of some interest is the fact that our net interest margin on line C is decreasing from year over year.
May I?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
About the chart, does that reflect that we're making fewer loans because of the market, or because people can't afford to buy, or because there aren't? Is it about people purchasing?
A little bit of both.
Because it's servicing, right? So it's related to how
servicing.
many.
So we had going into the last several years, a lot of 5%, 6%, 7% loans. Those loans are getting refied off. So the houses are not necessarily changing hands, but they're refining down to the lower interest rates, the prevailing rates of the last couple of years. And then you do have loan payoffs as well. And the loans that are paying off generally are going to be the higher rate loans. And we do not refi loans. So all of our loans come through the first-time home buyer. And so we don't have a steady stream of production that we can tap by cannibalizing our own portfolio and refining it out. And so we're replacing first-time home buyers, folks that were first-time home buyers 5 years ago, with new first-time home buyers. And the entry level, I think, is a little more difficult than it has been. The product is not necessarily available in the quantities that in the past they have been, and the entry point from a financial standpoint is higher because of the inflation, particularly the last 12 to 15 months of real estate. So it's a combination of all those.
And you say not to worry now, but don't we sort of have to worry if people aren't able to purchase?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's not something I like, but it's extremely difficult with a maturing portfolio to retain, if you will, loans that are going to naturally pay off primarily through refi. And we have one limited chain of getting loans into our portfolio, and that's first-time home buyers. And yeah, we can't, eventually we don't want to obviously run out of first-time home buyers. Excellent question. Thank you, Kathy. Any other questions on the chart or the first schedule? Okay, moving on to the income statement. And again, we did have a decrease in the net interest income of about $816,000. That is line C. That should be expected as the loans that are generating interest in the indenture are decreasing, as well as the bonds outstanding. And so that's not a surprise. The disappointing number on here is D. And as I told the finance committee several times, and I told the board, I think at every meeting for the last year anyway, the prices we were getting for our loans was unbelievable last year. And in my opinion, the market has returned to some more sensible pricing to our detriment. We enjoyed the $23 million we made in the first 6 months of fiscal 21. The $12 million is no slouch number, but clearly running just a little bit over half of what it was last year. So overall, we're going to have a decrease in net income for the year, or for the 6 months anyway, almost all attributable to the performance in the secondary market. Now, that program is tagged to make 2%, and it's making 4% or 4.5% so far this year. It was 8+% last year with the great prices that were out there last year. Line H, fairly significant decrease in general administrative. That is the current year impact of exiting the pension plan. Instead of paying 49% of our compensation pension plan numbers, we're paying 4%. And so that translates into a significant reduction in the benefits cost. It shows up on these statements on the general administrative cost line. Absent that, there's actually some increase in general administrative and you'll see that on the supplemental schedule coming up, as we've had to really bulk up to handle the Healthy at Home eviction relief fund. So anyway, that number is not unexpected, and it does help a little to offset the reduction in the gains on the sale of the loans. Looking at line O, so far for the first 6 months, we've had net income, if you will, of $19 million this year compared to 27.5 last year, reduction of 8.5, and almost exclusively attributable to the reduction in secondary market gains. It's still a decent profit. I mean, I got spoiled last year because of the gains, but 9 million is a good profit number for organizations such as us. Going to the next schedule, if you will. This is the variance report, where we're comparing what we thought we were going to do compared to what we actually have done for the first 6 months. And there's some pretty good sized variances. And going down, I'm looking in the next to rightmost column, the dollar variance. On line A, we have a $530,000 positive variance on HUD rental assistance fee income. We got a boost in our fee income, and we got more vouchers in the Housing Choice Vouchers program, generating more, neither of which was anticipated, so it's generating more income than we had budgeted. The big elephant in the room is on line C, $2 million positive variance. It's under the name Department of Housing and Urban Development Homeless, but it also includes the Treasury program, the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund. And if you recall, when we set the budget up last year, we put in some very, very general, rough estimate placeholders in the budget for the expected or estimated or close as we could get numbers to what that program was going to be like in fiscal 22. It is obviously running much faster and hotter than we put in the placeholders. And so we have positive variance on administrative fee on that program of $2 million. And when we get to the expenses, you'll see that almost all of it was offset by better than budget or higher than budget expenses to actually administer the program. So it makes sense. The story's solid. It's just bigger than what we had put in as placeholder numbers when we did the budget last year. And then the final item on the top part of the chart, line E, a $415,000 favorable variance. That is almost all attributable to the homeowners assistance funds. That fund was, and legislation creating that fund was so new when we did the budgets last year, we didn't even attempt to put a number in there. And so that program has launched. We've incurred prior to December, $415,000 of expenses and claimed reimbursement for that. And that's showing up as a positive variance on line E. We have launched that program just in the last 3 weeks. And there's literally hundreds of homeowners across the state looking for assistance in getting and funding their way out of the forbearance as those programs hit sunset dates. Looking at line H, which is a significant positive variance on the home production side, that's more of a timing issue than anything else. That more projects that close in a quarter or first 6-month period versus a smooth line across all 12 months, we'll have a positive variance so we have a positive variance in December year to date, and we'll be given some of that back from a variance standpoint, but not from an absolute revenue standpoint in the second half of the year. Bottom line, looking at line N, we're $3.7 million ahead on revenue for the reasons that I've already discussed. Line O, we are negatively have a negative variance on the expenses of $1.6 million, which I'll discuss on the next chart. But overall, on a net basis, we're $2 million favorable to the net income budget so far for the year. On the next chart, then, we'll talk a little bit about the expenses. Again, at the bottom of that chart, second from the right column, and row BB, that's the same $1.6 million unfavorable we saw at the bottom of the previous chart. I'll zero in on a couple of items that are significant variances. Line D, of course, is the big one. Business services. Included in that line item are contract workers and contracts, both temporaries through agencies and a contract we have with KPMG to assist us in administering the HHERF program. Again, that we didn't put the placeholder big enough in that when we did the budget, and so we're unfavorable to budget by $2 million, all of which was recovered as a favorable variance in the income budget on the previous schedule. And so it is consistent, it makes sense, and it's just a matter of that program being a lot hotter in the first 6 months of fiscal 22 than we thought it would be. We have some positive variances on the expenses. Line F, occupancy expense. Line G, foreclosure costs and release fees. Those are the two primary ones. Those are COVID related. We thought we'd be done with this thing, this pandemic by now, and clearly that didn't pan out. And so some of the budgeted items that we had coming into the budget or the fiscal year, we're just not going to spend to the levels that we had budgeted. So they're going to end up being favorable to budget for the year, probably, and we'll take that one to the bank and spend it next year. Looking at office supplies, line J, the HHERF is burning up a lot of office supplies, so we're unfavorable to budget there. That's pretty much the same item reason as line Q being unfavorable, $73,000, because they're using up a lot of printing and public information to keep that program out in the front of landlords and renters and tenants, so that the program is used and people aren't forced out of their homes. And then the other item I want to highlight is liquidation shortfall, which is S. It's a complicated number. We really ramped up the budget for that to better reflect the fact that we had ramped up the payoff number in fiscal 22 vis-a-vis 21. But we clearly did not anticipate payoffs to be still as high as they are. And so that number is a negative to budget. It's a complicated number, like I said, but it's a function of payoffs of government loans in Ginnie Mae pools. And so the more payoffs you have, the higher that number is going to be. And so again, with higher than expected payoffs, we have a higher than expected liquidation shortfall that we have budgeted to correspond to the payoff number when we put the budgets together. That's all I have on these schedules. If they're due to this normal schedule I present to the board, I have one other financial schedule, if I may, Mr. Brunson, and that deals with our COVID forbearance programs. This is the status of the forbearance, and this is a Jan 31, 2022 figure. Looking at the bottom right number, 878, we have 878 loans that are still protected under the federal related loan forbearance programs that were started back in March of 2020. That's still a sizable number. The highest that number got was 1,639 in August of 2020. And we've had a total of 2,444 loans at one time or another over the last 18 months, or 21 months actually, claim forbearance or claim a hardship from COVID, and they have worked their way out. A lot of them claimed hardship and then kept the loan current, and so they really didn't have a hardship, but we had to register it for tracking purposes and everything. But those that have stuck with it, we got to a running rate or a balance in August of 1,639 loans, and it's down down to 878 now. Those are dropping off at about 75 to 100 a month through the end of forbearance provisions of all the federal agencies. And again, like Mr. Brunson said in his presentation, generally as a result of loan modifications and primarily HUD, because that's where most of our loans are. And then the Homeowners Assistance Fund, which I talked about briefly, just getting launched. That is also a forbearance, an end of forbearance relief program that's out there. And so we'll see a lot of activity there coming up in the next 6 to 8 months. So now I understand that the president just extended the forbearance, that loans can enter forbearance for another 12-month period. So the program is not over. COVID's not over yet. So there could be some future hardships still to come that the forbearance program will be around to take care of. Now, as you recall, and I think Mr. Brunson mentioned, that the forbearance program has limited our cash receipts on these loans, even though we still have to pay security holders on the Ginnie Mae pools and our bond holders in the bond fund, which does require some liquidity. And we foresaw this again back in March of 2020, and we increased our lines of credit should we end up needing it to advance those funds. We have not, but we've been able to self-fund those amounts. But there is a liquidity cost to carrying all these loans for as long as we're having to carry them.
Can I ask, the loan forbearance, it's not just KHC loans, it's anybody's loans, right?
Right, but the count that I'm presenting is strictly KHC's portfolio.
Okay, so are you anticipating what percent of the loan forbearance money will come through KHC loans? Is that
from HOF, from the Homeowner Assistance Fund?
Yeah.
We did I personally, I have no statistics, first of all, but intuitively, I would think that we have a higher percentage of first-time home buyers in our portfolio. And first-time home buyers, I think, were the most susceptible to employment issues associated with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I think we will have a higher percentage relative to our portfolio than maybe some of the other larger servicers that are not limited to first-time home buyers in their portfolio. That's just conjecture on my part, Kathy.
Right.
But it's where I think the situations are.
I guess I'm just saying, so these numbers may improve even from the program we're operating. No, it's unrelated.
No,
we'll get some payoffs of these through the program we're operating.
They won't pay off, but they'll
not pay off.
But they'll get modified.
Okay.
The modification program simply is HUD lends them the number of delinquent payments, takes a second or a third on their house, payable at the maturity of the first, but they bring them current, and these work only on borrowers where they can maintain a monthly payment but cannot pay back the accumulated arrearage. Then there are other modifications that can help them even if they can't handle the current payment, but a reduced payment will modify it not only as to term and bring current, but also interest rate and extending the term to get the monthly payment down. The Homeowners Assistance Fund is reimbursing the borrower without the borrower ever having to pay it back, and so it's a much more lucrative arrangement for borrowers than the federal entity end of forbearance provisions that were put in place 18 to 21 months ago. So it's running the whole gamut. We're seeing all the different mechanisms at play. Unfortunately, there's going to be some people that will not be able to be helped completely, and we're trying to minimize that as much as we possibly can. But if there's a certain percentage of loans that go into foreclosure, and they haven't gone into foreclosure because they've all been on forbearance, and so we're going to see an uptick in the foreclosure referrals and some folks that are going to have to experience foreclosure. But I am optimistic that those that would not have gone to foreclosure will not go to foreclosure, and that the running percentage of folks that do go to foreclosure, hopefully they'll be helped to the point where they won't, but there will be loans that go to foreclosure. And nobody here is happy about that.
Yeah, I'm just saying thank you.
No, that's fine. I don't want to sound happy about it because I'm not. Okay, that's it on the financial statement information, Mr. Brunson. I think it goes back to you for just a brief thing, and then I'm on again.
Thank you, Mr. Statler. Beautiful as always. Just wrapping up my report. After that, Jim did present management's recommended renewal of our contract with Crow LLC for audit services in the upcoming year. He explained that because his son will become a partner at Crow this spring, KHC performed due diligence to ensure that there would be be an independence issue with Crow performing our audit. On inquiry with Crow and their research involving Crow's partner in charge of ethics and independence, which research was shared with management, it was determined that there would be no independence issue with Crow performing the audit. The Finance Committee accepted the recommendation of management regarding the renewal, which Jim will be presenting to the full board momentarily. Jim?
And that's me. And this is agenda item number 10 on the agenda. And this is requesting authorization to renew a personal service contract with Crow LLP for audit of financial statements. This is the first renewal of a 3-year arrangement. Crow having won the request for the RFP process last year for the first year of the audit. And this would be the first renewal, and then they'd be up for a second renewal. And as you know, I am sensitive to my son's employment by Crow. It's been very straightforward and open to the board for several years as he worked his way up through Crow. As a matter of practice, I am not involved in the evaluation of the proposals for the audit. And don't serve on the committee for that purpose. And so, and then in January, when it became obvious that he had been accepted into the partnership, I wanted to make sure that there would not be an independence problem. And so they commissioned an internal look-see into it, which they do whenever this type of arrangement might come up. And they shared their references and their sites and why they came to the conclusion that there would not be an independence issue. Which management here agrees with, having been involved with the evaluation, and therefore management recommended to the Finance Committee that we renew the contract with Crow for the audit of our December or June 22 financial statements, though it's going to be a fiscal 23 contract because that's the period of time, that's the contract period that they actually perform that work. So management made that recommendation, and I think Mr. Brunson has a final word on that, and we seek a resolution authorizing the renewal of the contract.
I'll just add very briefly that I, as a part of management, do concur in the motion to renew and do not see a conflict on the basis of the facts that Jim has outlined. And Jim has outlined, has reviewed this with myself and with Jeremy and other members of management. And we recommend that this be approved.
Steve, do you have any other comments you want to make at this point?
I do not. We can go ahead and conduct a vote. Excuse me.
Okay. Let me say thank you for your committee's work and in your report. We also appreciate Kevin Field and his work, and Jim, we certainly appreciate your work. So if no one has any questions or comments further, I would entertain a motion that we approve the personal service contract with Crow. Anybody, please?
Gary, you're muted.
Am I muted?
No.
Okay.
Never mind.
I need a motion.
Yeah, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Holly.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Jim, authorization to allocate the bond volume cap.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We come to the board maybe once a year with a request to allocate certain bond volume cap for the purpose of issuing mortgage credit certificates to continue fulfilling the mission of KHC to provide safe, decent, affordable housing opportunities. We seek approval by the board of directors to allocate additional resources to the mortgage credit certificate program. To issue MCCs, KHC must elect to not issue a certain amount of mortgage revenue bonds. And so we get bond authority. What we're wanting to do today is say we're not going to issue bonds. We have to declare that we're not going to issue bonds, but instead we're going to issue mortgage credit certificates. And what that does is help homeowners afford the monthly payment, if you will, by receiving a credit against their federal income taxes for a percentage of their interest that they pay on their mortgage. And so it serves as an interest subsidy via a tax reduction. We recommend approval by the board of a resolution authorizing KHC to file an election with the IRS to not issue mortgage revenue bonds in an aggregate amount not to exceed $178,427,547. This provides the opportunity to use all the remaining bonding authority carried forward from calendar 2019, which bonding authority would otherwise expire on December 31 of 2022. So during 2019, we had to allocate some of the bond cap to multifamily and retain the rest of it in single family. But because we're not using it for single family lending, then it becomes usable in the single family bucket, if you will, to issue mortgage credit certificates or MCCs. And so it's a part of the waterfall of usage of the bond cap. We had extra bond cap in 19 that made this number a good sized number that we carried forward for single family. We have nothing coming forward from 2020 because it was a lean bond cap year, and we recovered some of it in 21. So we're going to have to make this one last us a little bit longer, which we can do by changing the terms, and it basically changes the value of the certificate, the credit in the borrower's hands. But we want to have that product out there, and we're trying to garner as much 2022 bond cap as we can to try to augment or supplement what we didn't get from 2020.
Any members have any questions or comments for Jim? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this.
So moved.
Have a motion by Kathy, second.
Holly, I'll second.
We'll have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Jim, you got a couple items in regard to contracts with different realtors and things. You want to go ahead and explain those, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just two more contracts from me anyway. We're looking for authorization to renew contracts with Kentuckiana Property Preservation, LLC, Paid to Buy Realty, LLC, and Wolverine Real Estate Services, Inc., to provide property preservation services for KHC single-family default portfolio. We're required by both our insuring and guaranteeing agencies and our investors that once a loan goes into 30-day or more delinquency, that we determine that the house is occupied, so that if it is not occupied, then we can secure the property but otherwise verify that the house does have occupants in it, so that we don't have to secure the property. There's a couple different these contracts. Number one, verify occupancy, and then these folks also winterize houses that are vacant by pouring antifreeze into the plumbing and keeping everything from freezing up. And then in the summertime, yard maintenance, grass cutting, et cetera. And so we have three entities that do that. They were RFP'd last year, yes, in 2021. And so they served the first year of their contract. They're eligible for 2 renewal years. This would be the first renewal year or the second year under the contract. Wolverine was actually procured with a separate RFP late in 2021, not at this time in 2021, because the contractor we had selected in the past, in the last round, just wasn't getting it done. So we encouraged him not to work on it anymore, and we went ahead with Wolverine, approved at the December meeting. This recommendation that we're bringing to the board is recommending that KPP, or Kentuckiana Property Preservation, has a contract for not to exceed $800,000, Paid to Buy Realty not to exceed $250,000, and Wolverine Real Estate Services is an amount not to exceed $500,000. And a frame of reference, and I think there's still a few directors that were here quite a ways back. This is less than half of what these contracts were coming out of the Great Recession, and much higher defaults in our portfolios. And then second, most of these funds are recouped by filing claims with the insuring and guaranteeing agencies. And so we spend it to make sure the house is preserved. And then if the house is preserved, then the insurer pays the guarantee or the insurance, the FHA mortgage insurance on the property, and we recover most of these disbursements from there. So it's a big number, but most of it's reimbursed by the insuring agencies.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any members have any questions of Jim in regard to these contracts? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this.
So moved.
Motion.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Jim, you've got some personal service contracts with different real estate agencies. You want to discuss that for us?
You'll be glad to hear that this is the last speaking I'm going to be doing today. My voice is about out, but every once in a while, property does go through foreclosure and becomes an REO, real estate owned. FHA properties do not become REOs. They are conveyed to HUD. Fannie Mae properties, the REOs are managed by Fannie Mae. So we have very few REOs, but we still do have to have a real estate agent network in place across the state. And we are still using many of the agents, although we do put this out for RFP every 3 years, that we've been using. It's a fairly long list, but these are folks that we do know that have been successful in marketing our properties, and management recommends that this list again be approved so that we can use these agents to market our properties in fiscal 23 for an overall commission expense not to exceed $400,000.
Any members have any questions of Jim? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt these personal service contracts.
So moved. This is Chad.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Barry, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. And just let me say, Jim, we certainly appreciate your hard work and your effort. And also, Stephen, we appreciate your leadership on the Finance Committee. So you all do a wonderful job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And most days it's fun.
Good. Okay, so thank you. All right, so Gail, we're going to turn to you for a report on the joint meeting of the Program Policy and Communications and Planning Committees.
Thank you. On Wednesday, February 16th, the Program and Planning and Communications and Planning held a joint meeting to review the progress towards KHC's fiscal year 22 overarching strategies and recommended approval of the 2023-2024 state qualified allocation plan for the low income housing tax credit. So next, I believe John is going to take us through that process, and Sam Thorner will be presenting the qualified allocation plan shortly after. So Deputy Executive Director of Business Services will provide the Q2 updates on the corporation strategies from the Communication and Planning Committee. John Davidson. John, thank you for all the hard work on this. You have been wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that, Ms. Lively. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. My name is John Davidson, and wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of our planning process and also how we're doing in relation to our fiscal 22 corporate strategies. I want to note before I get going, this is not a voting item, so this is a presentation to hopefully tie some things together. As Ms. Lively mentioned, we held a joint meeting last week, at which we talked about the overarching strategies for fiscal 21. I'll review those briefly with you all this afternoon. The committee's role is to review those annually. We'll be coming back to the board in May to look at the new strategies for fiscal 23. In addition, the joint meeting consisted of the Program and Policy Committee, in which the allocation plan, which is our alignment of federal, state, and discretionary resources throughout the Commonwealth, are reviewed, and a recommendation is made for the full board to adopt that. And every 2 years, you'll be hearing a little bit later from Sam Thorner on this, but the qualified allocation plan. And similar to the allocation plan, it is a reviewed by this committee, and then a recommendation is made, which you will hear in just a little while from Sam. And then last but not least, the Finance Committee reviews the operating budget and is responsible for that. And again, that will be coming to you in the spring prior to the new fiscal year. So there's a timeline here just to give everybody sort of a sense of where we are. This is internally sort of how we do our planning. It's an integrated process of which the strategic direction and specific goals for the corporation and each department are aligned. We're in that process right now for the new fiscal year that occurs in February and March. The allocation planning, determining how we align our financial resources and invest them across the state via all of our programs, is done in April. And then last but not least, our balanced budget for all the operations to support our mission, our strategy, and all of the dollars we are responsible for overseeing. And that is done in May. And just for some assurance, we check in quarterly as an executive team to manage performance. And then typically in May and August, you will get a report about how we're doing across those for the allocation plan and for the strategies. So I'm a little early this year, and I'm excited to talk to you about the progress on our fiscal 22 strategies as it relates to the first 2 quarters of progress. Now I'm going to pivot and talk a little bit about the fiscal 22 overarching strategies. There are 4 of them. The first is serving with a purpose. That's our missional component, and illustrating and communicating the impact of our work and being an empathetic and collaborative partner. This is very much the missional aspect that we're focused on every day at work at Kentucky Housing. Secondly, provide holistic housing solutions. I made the comment last week, but our clients are ranging from the homeless population to multifamily developers to single family homeowners. There's a lot of breadth there. So continuing to operate our existing programs efficiently, You will see, and Jim's talked to you a little bit about this already, and we'll continue this discussion, but mitigating the impact of COVID-19 on our programs and partners. We want to align the programs and resources in partnership for an optimal impact. And last but not least, make sure we're using data, information, and analytics to shape our policy decision-making. Number 3 is being flexible in responding to our financial risk. We do that by considering opportunities to economically grow our mission. We do that by mitigating financial impact of COVID-19 and all of the additional dollars that are coming through. We do that by the utilization of all of our administrative funds. And lastly, we do that by looking at identifying and evaluating our limiting factors for the programs, the myriad of programs that we all operate. And last but not least, I shared this. This one's near and dear to my heart as the Deputy over Business Services, because we're going to sustain and advance core competencies, executing the succession planning for key positions, documenting key processes for business continuity, retaining and recruiting exceptional talent in a workforce that is absolutely challenging at this point. We are also investing in technology to support a very flexible remote work environment. And last but not least, continuing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the corporation. So that's the strategies in which we are guided and we're working on, and I wanted to, are working toward, and I want to give a update on how we're doing in relationship to those as it relates to some key accomplishments through the second quarter. So you will see in loan servicing, we have 902 loans per employee. That exceeds our target goal of 850. If you move down to the $289 million in loan production and volume, our target for the year was $450 million. That's 64%. And I'm not going to get into the seasonal, volume and things of that nature. So certainly Mr. Statler does an excellent job going over that. As mentioned earlier, the $12 million in secondary market gains exceeds our target for the year. But as you've heard earlier, reality might bring us back down. $241,000 in revenue for inspection fees, and a big deal for our tenant assistance programs. We achieved the standard performer, which has impacts on the number of vouchers we can lease and dollar amounts and per unit cost. So that's a big deal in achieving that, helping us serve more Kentuckians. We've had over 4,600 households served through the homeless programs. We have also, that's about 84% of our target of 5,500. We have preserved and created through our tax exempt bond program over 1,200 units. Again, 80% of what our target was. I think Winston mentioned earlier, we planned and launched our 50th anniversary celebration despite the pandemic in early February on May Street Kid's birthday. And so a very good job for communications. We're celebrating our 50th year at the corporation. KHC's minority representation of 14.85% is the highest in the last 4 years that I have gone back, but I went back 4 years. This is absolutely, it exceeds our stated goal and our expectation. So we've absolutely, this is the highest it's been in the corporation since I've been here for 16 years. And I started as an intern, and I'm before you today presenting these strategies. So it's a testament to that. And it also exceeds the state of Kentucky's minority representation statewide of 13% by almost 2%. So I say that's a huge kudos to the corporation, but also employee services. Last couple of other ones, we have successfully tested our disaster recovery plan. That's a big deal because we're able to fail over and work if in the event there's a natural disaster or power outage, things of that nature. Onboarded over 43 COVID relief program staff. We have onboarded over 150 employees since the beginning of COVID relief, and that has really been a testament to many areas of the corporation. Across the corporation, we have grown almost by a third. So we're growing. Last but not least, for business logistics, we have the HVAC replacement and some facilities enhancements, and we've implemented the Healthy at Work COVID protocols because throughout the pandemic, almost 2 years into it, we are still trying to keep our workspace as safe as possible for all of our employees, our customers, and we have COVID protocols in place in accordance with CDC guidelines, and everyone is staying safe and healthy in the workplace. And last but not least, our corporate planning and accountability department. We have 43% of the available admin fees through the first 6 months have been realized, and that's a testament to us operating our programs efficiently. If you recall, that's one of the things that we are strategically focused on. And the Western Kentucky online tool is a great resource for, in early December when the tornadoes hit Western Kentucky. There's now a tool where available units, people can find available units, see available units, post available units to really connect the unit with the folks that have been impacted by the disaster. And that was stood up very quick, and it seems to be a very popular, needed resource for folks in Western Kentucky. So with that, I will entertain any questions should you have any. Thank you.
This is Kathy. I just want to say that John explained that the reason we did so well with employment was we did things differently because of COVID. And what I would suggest is we learn our lesson that if we do things differently, we'll get a better outcome for people in protected classes to be able to purchase. Because in terms of mortgages, even at all levels of income, I just know in Louisville, and I know the Black and Hispanic ownership rate, even with people with $60,000 or $70,000 a year, the ownership rate in minorities is half that what it is for white home ownership rates. So let's take that lesson, that doing something different can get us different and better results in all parts of what we do. Because that's amazing, that what you did for employment. Absolutely amazing. Thrilled.
Thank you, Kathy.
John, just let me say that's an excellent report, and you did an excellent job. And
thank you.
Any other members have any questions or comments they want to make for John? Gail, let me bounce it back to you. Do you have anything further you want to say? You're muted, Gail.
So there we go. No, just kudos to John and the staff for putting all those numbers together and digging deep to figure out what some of those percentages and those numbers were. Thank you. Thank you. Kathy, thank you for the questions. I think
Gail, thank you for your leadership on those committees, please. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Winston.
John, do you have anything else you want to say?
Yes, sir. If you're okay with it, I will move to the next item, which is the agenda item 16, which is it does have a resolution, and wanted to talk a little bit about the contract and the authorization to renew a personal service contract with Millennium Learning Concepts, MLC, LLC, for consulting services for diversity, equity, and inclusion, assessment, training, and planning. That is a mouthful. So, but very, very important work that we are working with Millennium to do. This is the first renewal of 2 renewals possible with MLC. We had their initial contract started January 1st of 2021 through 12/31/2021 for a fee not to exceed $100,000 for consulting services, professional expertise to oversee planning and training with the goal of maximizing our DE&I efforts. What you have before you is a renewal not to exceed $43,200 for fiscal year end 2023. This is a minority-owned business. Dr. Roger Cleveland, who is wonderful to work with, is the founder, owner, and president of Millennium Learning Concepts. This work has been broken out into 3 phases of work. The first phase, which you'll see in the resolution here, is an organizational assessment. The second phase is a DE&I plan, and then the last phase is the education and training for all KHC staff. And this is so staff recommends the adoption of resolution number 10, and I'm happy to address any questions should you have any.
Thank you, John. Do any members have any questions of John in regard to this resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve it.
So moved.
Okay, have a motion by Kathy, second.
Second, Gail.
Okay, second by Gail. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
John, thank you so very much. All right, so moving right along, Sam Thorner has a discussion and approval about the state qualified allocation plan for low-income housing. Sam?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So today I have a request for the board to approve the 2023-2024 low-income housing tax credit qualified allocation plan. I'm going to go over a little bit about what the low-income housing tax credit program is, and I'll talk a little bit also about what the process that we went into to develop the qualified allocation plan and what the plan highlights from what the plan contains. So firstly, the low-income housing tax credit program is administered by the IRS. And so 9% tax credits are allocated to KHC based on the population of the state. So KHC receives approximately 11.65 million tax credits annually to allocate to projects. And so KHC establishes priorities and competitive award processes via the qualified allocation plan. And this plan has to comply with Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code. Developers use the award of tax credits to raise equity from investors to finance the development of affordable housing. And the tax credits are claimed over a 10-year period, but the property is maintained for 30 years as affordable. And it's subject to recapture for non-compliance. So just to give you a sense of how many projects apply and what we're able to fund based on the amount of tax credits that we receive. This year, we received 33 applications and $34 million in requests for tax credits. And based on the amount that we received from the IRS, we were only able to fund 13 projects totaling $12 million in tax credits. So the demand is very high, and we're only able to fund about a third of the projects that we receive applications for. So the purpose of the qualified allocation plan is to outline the criteria and eligibility requirements and establish a scoring system to determine which projects get funded. So this document is typically updated annually or biannually, and we have been doing a 2-year QAP for the past few cycles. And the most recent QAP was approved by the board of directors in 2020. So some of the goals that we had in mind when we were developing the QAP is to solicit feedback from developers, partners, and various stakeholders. And we held developer forums virtually in November and January. And we held a virtual public hearing earlier this month. And we also had a period to receive written comments and feedback. And so we also want to use data to establish scoring elements that incentivize certain project characteristics, including locations of new construction projects. We were looking at distribution of housing credits across the Commonwealth, and we also wanted to maintain a 2-year QAP cycle. One of the challenges that we encountered this year was that normally we use census data for a lot of the scoring criteria, but the 5-year census data has been significantly delayed due to the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So rather than delaying the issuance of the QAP, we opted to proceed with the data we had available and substitute with alternate reliable data sources where we could, such as the U.S. Social Security Administration. So some of the key elements of this QAP is that competition for the LIHTCs is divided into 4 separate scoring pools so that projects only compete against similar projects. So the first pool is the new construction pool, or the creation of new supply. And in this pool, which is scored, urban and rural projects compete separately. So urban projects only compete against urban and rural only compete against rural. This pool also includes a preference for historic adaptive reuse projects. There's also the preservation and rehab pool. This is for existing affordable housing projects that need to be rehabilitated. And again, urban and rural projects compete separately in this pool. The next pool is the innovation pool, and this is for projects that might not score competitively, but offer unique housing solutions. And this year, we are also introducing a new pool, well, reintroducing a pool that we've had in the past, but it's the nonprofit permanent supportive housing pool for projects that are using home ARP funding to create permanent supportive housing units. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Another key element of the QAP is that at least 10% of the annual tax credit allocation needs to be awarded to projects in which a nonprofit materially participates. So in the next slide, you can see a breakdown of how much approximately each pool will receive. And you'll note that there's also a pool called the Maximizing Outcomes pool. This pool includes credits that are left over from other pools once projects have been awarded based on scoring. And we use this pool to fund as many projects as possible while ensuring the goals of the QAP are met, such as funding at least one project in each congressional district and ensuring that 10% 10% of the credits go to nonprofits. I'll note that the amount of tax credits listed there and in the QAP is an estimate based on last year's calculation of credits. The final amount is issued by the IRS each year and is based on the population of Kentucky. So some of the scoring elements for all projects include we want to make sure that the projects are successful, both in the creation of the units on the front end and in terms of sustainability on the back end. So we want to make sure that the development team has the capacity to complete the project, and the management team is going to support long-term sustainability. We also are looking at to what extent will disadvantaged businesses be participating. And we have long incentivized the participation of disadvantaged businesses in the QAP. As John mentioned earlier, over the past few years, we've been evaluating our internal and external operations with the goal of making KHC as inclusive as possible for our staff, customers, and partners. So in light of this, for this QAP, KHC decided to weight the participation of disadvantaged businesses differently, placing a higher point value on disadvantaged business participation in the role of developer or co-developer. Some scoring items for the preservation rehab pool that we use are how long has it been since the last substantial rehab? What projects are in the greatest need of rehab? Is the project at risk of losing rental assistance or at risk of being lost due to ownership issues or market conditions? And then for rural projects, does the project represent a significant number of total affordable units in the county. This particular pool obviously represents projects that are already in place that need rehabilitation, so location is not as much of a substantial factor for this pool. For the new construction and new supply pool, some of the factors that we looked at are, is the project located in an area of opportunity? So for this scoring criteria, we use the Opportunity 360 tool, which was developed by Enterprise Community Partners. It evaluates various measures of opportunity at the census tract level. It gathers data points related to factors and amenities in a particular community that indicate the strength of certain traits like housing stability, economic security, and education, and generates a score for a particular census tract. Enterprise decided to end the tool at the end of last year, but they've agreed to continue providing us with the data for the next 2 years. So over the next couple of years, we're going to be evaluating other methods of determining what constitutes an area of opportunity for future QAPs, but for this cycle, we're going to keep this scoring item in place. Another item that we look at is there significant demand in the county? This is an item that we've determined shows the more demand there is, the more likely that a project is to be successful in the long term. So we look at the percentage of households that are that have less than or equal to 60% of the area median income to determine the scoring item. We also look at whether there is a low supply in the county, looking at the percentage of affordable units in that county. We look at, for family projects, is it an area of job growth, or is it in a county that has not had a LIHTC project in the last 10 years? So previously we had looked at population in addition to job growth, but for this year we decided that rather than focusing on population growth, we wanted to make sure that there was an equitable distribution of credits across counties. And so we decided to implement a scoring criteria for projects to incentivize projects in counties that have not had a LIHTC project in the last 10 years. For senior projects, we look at whether the county has a high number of seniors, or we allow projects to get the same number of points for including certain aging in place design features. Again, we didn't have all of the available data from the census, so we decided to use the Social Security Administration data in lieu of that. We also look at for urban projects, is it in a qualified census tract? And if so, does that QCT have a community revitalization plan? We also used to have a scoring item for urban projects, and we had to remove it. It originally incentivized urban projects and census tracts that had lower poverty rates, but because of the lack of the 5-year census data coupled with recent changes to the census tracts, it made it necessary for us to remove this scoring item. We did like this scoring item, and it does further the goal of decentralizing poverty. So we expect that it will return once the necessary census data is available in the next QAP cycle. And finally, we look at does the project support poverty deconcentration and affirmatively furthering fair housing. So like I said, for the innovation pool, there is no scoring. This pool was established to create a way for projects that we felt were worthy of receiving consideration, even if they did not score competitively in the 2-scored pool. So oftentimes you'll see smaller projects that offer unique services or interesting amenities. And we kind of use this as a way for developers to present to us, what they feel like might be important elements in a particular project. Finally, we added the nonprofit permanent supportive housing pool this year. So under the American Rescue Plan, KHC received a one-time allocation of home funds in the amount of over $52 million to benefit those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. So for this QAP, we decided to reintroduce this pool to leverage these home ARP dollars with tax credits to finance the creation of permanent supportive housing units. These home ARP funds will be deployed in a variety of ways to create permanent supportive housing, and we feel that one of those methods should include leveraging the 9% tax credits. And as with the innovation pool, this pool will not be scored. We feel that we're going to be gathering input from relevant stakeholders regarding which projects will be of most benefit to the Commonwealth. So that's the way we'll make the determination for those. As far as the timeline, so on February 3rd, we had the public hearing, and we had a public comment period for the week following that. It went to the Programs and Policies Committees last week, and today it's being presented to the board. After this, it will need to go to the governor for signature, and then once that has been completed, we'll be able to open up the 9% competitive process in May. In August, the applications will be received, and we will announce the award of funding for the 2023 funding round in January of 2023. So we are asking that the board issue a resolution approving the 2023-24 state qualified allocation plan for the low-income housing tax credit program. Thank you.
Sam, that was an excellent presentation. We really appreciate your hard work on that. Do any members have any questions of Sam or comments that they'd like to make at this point? If not, I'll entertain a motion that this be approved.
So move.
I so move.
Okay. All right. So we get a motion from Marilyn and a second from Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So our next agenda item is Marty Shilcoat with the approval of the Public Housing Agency annual plan for rental assistance. So Marty.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to all the board members. Thank you also for allowing me the opportunity to present updates for the PHA annual plan for the rental assistance program. Today, I will be going over the changes in sections A1 and B5 of the annual plan. In section A1, we have the number of housing choice vouchers in KHC's HCV portfolio, and this number includes new voucher sources received in the past year. Right now, the rental assistance program's portfolio has increased to 6,092 vouchers from a previous 5,835 due to the addition of 257 emergency housing vouchers that we received in July of 2021. Those vouchers are administered and referrals received through the continuum of care and to serve those that are homeless, at risk of homelessness, or fleeing domestic violence or human trafficking. In section B5, information listed in progress report of annual PHA plan. As John mentioned in his presentation, the Rental Assistance Department currently holds an overall CMAP performance rating of standard with a focus on increased utilization and special purpose vouchers. Again, we were awarded 257 emergency housing vouchers. We have made voucher offers to more than 2,525 waiting list applicants and increased overall program utilization. We have 100% utilization of our family unification program. And we have also implemented a landlord engagement program to promote landlord participation for regular housing choice voucher and our special purpose vouchers. So those are the updates that we have in our annual plan for this year.
Okay. Marty, do you have anything else that you want to talk about, discuss with this? You finished?
No, sir. No, I'm finished. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. We appreciate your hard work, and that's an excellent presentation. So if do any members have any questions of Marty in regard to this contract? Okay, we need a motion to approve this resolution approving.
I'll make a motion, Beverly.
Okay, Beverly, do I have a second?
I'll second this, Holly.
Okay, thanks, Holly. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Marty. We appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, so Curtis Stauffer is going to talk about renewing a personal service contract in regard to homelessness training and technical assistance, which I know is important to all of us. So, Curtis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the ability to come before you to ask for a renewal of our contract with the Corporation for Supportive Housing to provide technical assistance and consulting services related to our use of the home ARP dollars mentioned earlier by Sam, which provide a little over $52 million for the development of homes and services to serve folks at risk or experiencing homelessness in the Commonwealth. Because the types of projects that these dollars are intended to support, we have fairly limited experience with in both our development community and within KHC about administering projects that have best practices for permanent supportive housing development. When we were awarded these funds by HUD last year, we thought it was essential to get technical assistance to KHC to support our planning for and use of these funds. So as a result, we issued an RFP in June 2021 to request support to provide a supportive housing needs assessment, assist us with drafting of the home ARP allocation plan, to assist with consultation with key stakeholders on the use of home ARP funds and development of the allocation plan, to provide technical assistance to prospective development teams in creating proposals for permanent supportive housing developments, and to provide policy and administrative guidance to KHC and our partner agencies in the balance of state COC. As a result of that RFP, we selected the Corporations for Supportive Housing as our contractor, and they were given an award with an option for renewal for up to 3 years based on their proposed total amount bid of $256,000. And this collaboration to date has been a tremendous success. Kentucky was the very first state in the nation to get our home ARP plan approved, and we were able to submit our plan to HUD precisely because we had engaged CSH in this early in the process to assist us in the development of our needs assessment and allocation plan. Additionally, they are going to be and are in the midst of providing our first Kentucky Supportive Housing Institute, which launched on February 16th with 6 prospective development teams and their service provider partners. So they will learn over the course of the next few months how to create a strong proposal that will be economically sustainable for the provision of supportive housing and hopefully the successful use of home ARP funds, potentially in conjunction with our LIHTC set aside for permanent supportive housing. So we're very excited about that. And I think because of the role that they are playing and the demand we've set with the qualified allocation plan Sam discussed, we're seeing great interest from our development and service provider community. We had 5 slots available for the Kentucky Supportive Housing Institute, of which we received 11 applicants. So we have, as we see on the table right now, at least sufficient applicants to do a second class next year, utilizing these funds to provide technical assistance that CSH will provide. These funds are all covered by our administrative fee that we can use the home ARP funds for. And we have up to 15% of that grant, or $7.75 million, for this use, of which this $256,000 contract is a fairly small amount. And I propose as a wise investment of those funds. The terms of this contract are going to be a renewal of their existing contract first executed on September 1st of last year. And it will cover the duration of fiscal year 2023. And it will basically be for the balance remaining of their initial $256,000 allocation after the payments made during the current year have been taken. So with that, I'm open to any questions, but I request that the board approve renewal of our contract with CSH to provide home ARP supportive services and development consultation service.
Curtis, thank you for that description, and congratulations on being first in the nation to get that approved. We appreciate your hard work and your effort. Do any members have any questions of Curtis? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second,
Okay.
Beverly.
All right. Can I have a motion and a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Curtis. We appreciate your hard work and your effort.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, Next up is Wendy Smith to talk about a personal service contract with Hair Grove Consulting. And Wendy, my question to you is, are you still working 48 hours a day?
I'm working a lot, but everybody is. We're asking a lot of everyone at KHC these days.
Well, we appreciate your effort. We know you've had a lot on your shoulders. So, okay, Wendy, you have the floor.
Sure. This kind of piggybacks on the resolution and the contract that Curtis just brought before you all. When we did that very same procurement in May, I think it was, of 2021, we not only engaged the Corporation for Supportive Housing, but we also engaged two other smaller contracts, smaller consultants to help us with all of our new COVID and American Rescue Plan Act programs. One of which was Hair Grove Consulting LLC, which is led by Heather Hairgrove, who lives in Louisville. And Heather is working with us on a number of programs, particularly our Emergency Rental Assistance 2.0, our emergency housing vouchers, and a little bit on the Home ARP program, because she's really familiar with how you project-based vouchers, particularly with other public housing authorities. And so we simply want to ask the board to consider renewing Heather's contract for a second year. And it would simply be for the balance of what remains in her $250,000 contract. So far, she has invoiced $44,000. So we've got plenty of dollars remaining in the amount that the board approved last year. So no additional allocation, just a continuation with the original amount and the balance remaining. So with that, I respectfully request that the board approve this renewal.
Okay, thank you. Any members have any questions of Wendy in regard to this? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his personal service contract.
I so move.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Wendy, you have another personal service contract. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, sir. Same vein, same procurement process back in May of 21. A smaller contract for a more limited scope of work, but this is with Tiffany Marthaler, who's an individual that lives in Shepherdsville, I believe. And she is doing hourly work for us, mainly doing a lot of program manuals, because as Treasury has made clear to us, you've got to get it in writing and follow it. If they haven't given us clarity, then we need to create our own clarity and then follow it. And so Tiffany is the one who's been helping us get our policies written down so that we have them in writing and we can follow them and we can hopefully back ourselves up whenever we do get monitored by Treasury. This also is a renewal. So we had the contract last year. We're asking to renew it, and simply for the balance that remains in the $60,000 contract. Less than $4,000 has been invoiced against this. So again, we've got plenty in there. No new funds have to be allocated for this. So with that, I again respectfully request that the board consider this renewal.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Any members have any questions of Wendy? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this contract.
This is George. I'll so move.
Thank you, George. You have a second?
Second, Barry.
Barry, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Wendy, I want to thank you for your hard work, and I especially want to thank you and others who on the morning of December 11th worked with emergency management so closely in regard to the tornadoes in Western Kentucky. So we appreciate your effort. Okay, so with that, I really don't have any informational items, but I know Winston does. So Winston, I'm going to turn it over to you. I know you have a couple of things you want to discuss.
Yeah, Mike, that was a great segue you just made to the first item, informational item, which I mentioned earlier, and that is the events following December 10th and the Western Kentucky tornado situation. And as you mentioned, that morning, the morning after, Wendy Smith was at the emergency management facility here in Louisville, meeting with all the other rest of the team of Kentucky emergency management folks, trying to figure out what we need to do from here to help the folks in Western Kentucky. And since then, we've been involved in an appropriate way in what's been going on there. And I'm going to let Wendy give you an update from starting with that morning and bringing us up to date with some consideration of the time that we have here. We've had a long meeting, and I think she can give you an overview, and we can certainly answer any questions that you might have. Wendy?
Sure. Thanks, Winston. So as Winston said, we were asked to be at the Emergency Operations Center the day after the tornado, and we showed up. And since then, we have been a very active party with FEMA and Kentucky Emergency Management and the Red Cross. We have attended, I just don't even know how many meetings, and it's not just myself, it's many staff, Winston, many of our partners have been in lots of meetings for response and planning. I will say that it has been hard for us to get a handle on what our role is or should be. We have many requests for information out to different parties to try to understand the scope of how many homeowners lost their homes, how many renters lost their homes, how many folks just need a minor repair, a major repair, a total rebuild. We're really trying to understand the scope of this. And I think Winston and I and our staff expected 2 months in that we would, have some really good data that mapped it out and told us the where and the what. We're asking for that actively, but we are still kind of a little bit frustrated. But I can tell you what we have been doing because we can't just sit still. So here's what we have done. We immediately built an inventory of available rental units west of I-65 and even going into Indiana and Tennessee a little bit. We basically started by calling all of our properties that we have tax credits or loans or some other funding in so that we could build an inventory. It's available online. You can click the county and see what's on there. You can also just print out the entire list. So we had a team of folks for whom it is not their job to do that, but we asked them if they would, and they stepped up and did even more than we expected. So we did that to try to help people get rehoused. We've also reached out to a lot of our partners, homeless shelters, Habitat for Humanity, and the like, to say, do you have enough funding if you're asked, if people come to you saying, I need rent assistance, I need help, do they have enough funding? Most of our partners are kind of still waiting and seeing like we are, but we did have one homelessness provider who said they were getting low on rapid rehousing funds. So we just modified their grant and got them more money. We did that a couple weeks ago. Again, we've been doing lots of meetings. We are looking at some data we got from the Red Cross to try to understand for the households that are in shelter, so in a state park or a hotel, what's going on with them and what is that telling us about who we or our partners might be able to reach out to right now with some help. The Red Cross is ending their mission in Kentucky as of Monday. Then Kentucky Emergency Management takes over for those folks who are in shelters and state parks. And so we're trying to figure out how can we play a meaningful role in the interim for the folks we know are going to need rent assistance or home repair dollars because they're underinsured. So we're still trying to suss that out, but we feel like we're making some progress toward that. We're also working with our HUD field office in Louisville because they have been charged with writing the housing portion of a disaster assessment report that the federal agencies all together, so Commerce, Transportation, all of them, put together this assessment of pre-disaster and post-disaster conditions. And that kind of speaks to the availability of federal dollars and the scope of recovery. And so we're working with our HUD rep on that, and we'd like to participate in some of the stakeholder meetings so we can hear firsthand from mayors and judge executives and nonprofits, what they're seeing on the ground, because we feel like we're not hearing enough of that at these higher level meetings. And the only other thing I would share is that we have inventoried the units we've lost from our own multifamily properties that we oversee in terms of compliance and loan servicing. And right now it's 255 units and one shelter. have been lost from our inventory. Winston, I think that covers everything that we have to share with the board. But I welcome any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Does anybody have any questions of Wendy on what we've done or where we are?
Winston, that 255 units, were those Kentucky housing units?
Wendy can give you the breakdown. They're affordable. They're housing units that were affordable housing units that had been financed through, Kentucky Housing Corporation programs. At least part of them were. And I don't know, Wendy, whether that 250 number includes the public housing units or not.
It does. So that's a good question, Chair Denham. 205 are actually units that we have tax credits or a loan or some other subsidy in. And then 50 were units lost by the Dawson Springs Public Housing Authority. And those 50 units, because they're destroyed, will likely be converted into Section 8 vouchers that will come to KHC to administer. That hasn't happened yet, but we've learned from HUD that will probably happen.
One more question, Wendy. Do we know how many housing units were lost totally down there?
Oh, Mike, I would like to know that. That is part of we're about to send to FEMA and KYEM this giant data request because we just can't get any clarity from them. We would like the total number of units and then have it broken out by, rental, homeowner, trailers to really understand what are we talking about here in terms of the loss. And I'm frustrated to not be able to report that to y'all.
Well, thank you.
Well, I have the second item will be very brief. As I mentioned earlier, and I think as John Davidson made reference to, on February the 8th, we hosted the 50th anniversary of the Kentucky Housing Corporation with a kickoff ceremony, which we held at the Cottages of Frankfort here in Frankfort, Kentucky, at which really the program consisted primarily of some videos of that related to the accomplishments of Kentucky Housing Corporation and of people that we've assisted through the Kentucky Housing Corporations as examples of what the work that we've done over the past 50 years. And we did this on February the 8th in honor of the birthday of May Street Kid. And I hope and believe that all the folks on the board here, or at least all the experienced folks on the boards here, are familiar with that the Kentucky Housing Corporation, it really is a creature that was created by statute, that legislation that was sponsored and introduced by May Street Kid of Louisville, Kentucky, who had this vision to help provide affordable housing and first-time mortgages for people who were first-time home buyers more than 50 years ago. And we've, of course, existed since then. And in this 50th year of that existence, we hope to have several events around the state at which you all will receive advance notice and will be invited. And as a couple of you have pointed out with regard to this particular event, there was essentially no advance notice and there was no invitations forthcoming. And the reason for that primarily is that we've been dealing with both the COVID issues and we've been dealing with the scheduling issues that are associated with the governor's office. And we were unsure as to the date, we were unsure as to the location, but we were sure as to the limitation, depending upon the location, of the number of people that we could invite. So rather the invitations that went out to the press. It was primarily a media event and was really only attended by a few staff members of the Kentucky Housing Corporation. But if you want to see the remarks and what occurred, it's available on YouTube. And I believe that Molly on the February the 8th sent you a link to what would be that presentation. And I believe that link is still live and reflects what actually occurred on that presentation. So we encourage you to take a look at it. But as I've said, we do have plans to, COVID and pandemic permitting, to have some regional meetings with our partners and constituents at which we will certainly include invitations to you all to those events. So we look forward. Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Beverly. I just wanted to know that I am happy to host that in Shively. As you think about planning a calendar to regional or, throughout the state, I would be happy to speak with you regarding trying to find a date to host something like that in my area.
Well, thank you very much. That's a lovely invitation, and I suspect that Molly Tate is on with us, and she'll make note of that, Beverly. And Molly and I will follow up with you as to what we have planned in the Louisville area, and what dates we're looking at, and figure out how we can make that work. So, thank you.
And don't forget that May Street Kid was instrumental in Kentucky adopting a Fair Housing Act. So
absolutely,
hand in hand with
Kathy. Kathy, if I gave her whole resume, we'd be here another 15 or 20 minutes. So
no, I was just saying housing. It's a housing.
You're exactly right. She was instrumental in that, and very, very appreciative of that.
And Winston, I guess I'll just say this real quick and then I'll be done. And I guess one of the reasons that Shively comes to mind for me, not that because I'm mayor there, but just because of the historic piece that we had in 1954 that happened with the Andrew and Charlotte Wade issue, and how the Bradens, supported that initiative of, them purchasing homes. So I think I just kind of pair that with what you're speaking about. And that's why I would be happy and honored to serve as one of those places for any type of future, meetings.
Thanks very much. We appreciate that. And in any event, this was the 50th kickoff on February the 8th. Was a nice event, and we encourage anybody to take a look at the video of it that was available to the press. And I think I know it got Spectrum One coverage, and I don't know about other media coverage that it received. But with those two informational items, Mike, unless there's additional questions or comments, that's all I have today.
Okay, thank you, Winston. And I had the privilege of knowing May Street Kid, and she was a wonderful lady. And Winston, I really appreciate you all trying to make this work. I know you worked on this for several weeks, and the COVID numbers just kept climbing and kind of ruined your plans. But I really appreciate you trying to make it work. And maybe we can give Kentucky Housing Corporation and May Street Kid their just due down the road here somehow. So I appreciate what you do.
Thanks very much.
So let me open it up to any board members that you all may have, any questions that the board may have of Winston or the staff. Does anyone have any questions? Well, I appreciate your all's attendance today. I know it's been a long meeting. Just let me say that I continue to be thoroughly impressed with the staff at Kentucky Housing Corporation, and the work that they do is just absolutely unbelievable. And proud to be a part of this board. So thank you, staff, for everything that you all do for the Commonwealth. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Okay, have a motion and a second.
Second.
All right, you have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you all very much.
Everybody have a good day. Thanks.
All right, do the same.